I'm glad we got that out
What's
before you clicked record.
Yeah.
Yeah. Jackass. Oh, sorry. We're supposed to wait 30 seconds before we could swear, so.
Yeah. Oops. It's the first
Gotta
time in a
get
couple of
something in
years
there.
we've got content, so we got to also swear within the first 10 seconds and
Yeah,
have one of
get
our people not
demonetized.
read the story.
Right.
I
So we
was
haven't
really
done the
sure we were doing while we weren't recording today. I don't know why. I need to be more specific on my calendar, and it just says podcast, and have it say which podcast, I guess.
But don't forget, because next week when we do while we weren't recording, you have movies you need to watch.
Right.
Yeah.
We have homework that all of us were joking last week of having not done.
Yeah,
that's you're going to want to break 4 Lions into multiple sessions, my dude. So you just can't just sit down and watch that all
I think it will resonate with me more.
Yeah, okay. Let me know how that works out, because I've asked a couple of Europeans, and so far they were like, "Yeah, we hear it's great, but we haven't watched it," which isn't exactly like glowing praise. So why haven't you watched a dozen movies that we've recommended? And how many years down the line have we gone? So people.
I'm watching them now, right? I guess, because you put it on the list. Now I have to.
God, that it's really hard not to go back and just be like, man, these are 2 really great movies that I picked, but I should have picked more different ones. So, but
yeah, okay, right. Little things. We're talking about the short story.
It's been a minute, so I feel like we should make disclaimers about our adult language usage and definitely spoiling the short story. Now, it's not like going to blow the lid off of anything per se, but Andreas is in for a treat. So.
Yeah. Right, so there's a short story that was published on Tuesday, which was what date? It was the 3rd of May. That is an Heroic Hearts anthology. It's the first chapter, because that's the one that everyone cares about, probably.
It's also important to note that he's one of the 2 editors for this one, right? So
yes, he was the big draw of this anthology, definitely. And if you did do the Audible version, I have to say it is a showcase of Marster's voices, because some of his best voices are all the characters in this. I mean, you've got Toot, you've got Bob, you've got other pixies, you've got him having to differentiate between Toot and Lacuna, and he does Toot's voice throughout the whole story. He does not, except for other people's dialogue, he does not break it, and that must have been very painful after a while.
Yeah, no doubt.
So it starts, Andreas, you might want to plug your ears. My name is Major General Toot Toot Minimus, Sprite in Service of Sir Harry Dresden, Knight of the Winter Court, Wizard of Chicago, and Captain of his personal guard. Everyone has retreated to the Castle Dresden, and I think this is still within the first 2 weeks after Enya destroyed Chicago, because it seems very chaotic.
As we find out in moments, it's not Castle Dresden, but so
it's a delivery has been spotty.
Yes, because there's this bad thing called economy, and the economy is bad, and that means pizza delivery don't make it.
Right. My wife made it through the entire story before she realized, like, wait, the economy? So, yeah.
Oh boy.
Yeah, because it's the economy, stupid. So.
Yeah, and. Let's see, but the troops need their pizza, and even frozen pizza is better than none pizza. So Toot goes up to Dresden while he's doing absolutely nothing, sitting in the middle of a room with his eyes closed, saying, "The troops are worried about the economy again." And Dresden says, "I was meditating." "But when? I didn't see you doing anything. I approached you just because you weren't doing anything."
Right.
But they get up and go to the kitchen, which makes Toot very uncomfortable because it's covered in the bane. And Dresden says that it is healthier for people, but Toot doesn't really believe it. And they put some pizzas in the oven.
Yeah, he's got a really rad stainless steel modern kitchen in his castle. So
yeah, it sounds very pretty, and it's not going to last for very long.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't break down steel just by being near it, but, I'm assuming they're piping in gas from elsewhere and stuff like that because, we'll talk about that more later. And then, Dresden seems to have some little tricks, because he turns on like a radio so he can listen to music, right, while he's cooking.
Yeah.
So.
It's crackly, and Toot doesn't understand why Dresden wants to listen to crackly music, but he's a wizard, and they're weird about things like that.
Right.
So it looks like Harry's a little depressed here.
No shit.
Are you kidding me? Like,
yeah, no, he's.
Thank you for that special note. So, yeah. I don't know why he's depressed just because his lady died on the battlefield and everything, and Chicago is in ruins. And spoilers again. I really hope you've read that book in the last 2 years. So,
yes, Dresden is depressed enough for even to understand that this is a different type of wound, and he can't help very easily. He understands that it's something bigger than him, the little person. But after they put in the pizzas, Justin just kind of stands there and covers his face with his hands and cries a little bit. Okay. And then William shows up. Well, also Lacuna. There's some banter between Lacuna and Toot about, once again, I present myself to you for humiliation, because she thinks that pizza is humiliating.
Also being captured. So,
yeah. Yeah. I am bound to serve your lord as he defeated my lord. I must serve. I need not like it, because she's prickly. Because she was Hook, essentially. Shut up.
Did you work on that one for the whole week?
But I should have probably. Yeah. All right. Sir William is not tall for a human, but he looks very square and strong, like he would be able to hold up the corner of the castle if it had a block there had failed. And it's probably a good thing for, I assume, Will and Georgia and their daughter to be in the castle, where it is reasonably safer than wherever their tiny apartment was that probably got crushed.
Well, yeah, I mean, they would have been out by the university still, or maybe they moved away since they're older now, but that's where they used to be, right?
So in Aftermath, they were still in that college university region, right. And it was a tiny thing. And I think Murphy had remarked on the fact it was tiny, and now they're trying to add a baby to it, and the space is going to be questionable. Mm-hmm. But maybe they moved out after Aftermath. It's possible during Ghost Story they wanted someplace bigger, safer, further away, something like that.
Yeah, they probably wouldn't have been very close to downtown, is all I'm saying. So
yeah, hopefully
as much
not.
as anything, but yeah.
But still, there's an umbrella of safety possibly around Dresden, also an umbrella of destruction. But it's you take some, you lose some.
Like a hurricane, right? If you're way in the inside, you're safe, but if you're just here, you're in danger. So
yes, exactly. Right. And Will is reporting that the Velasquez's little girl was out of the hospital. They're bringing her back to the castle. The fever broke after Michael Carpenter visited her, because of course it did. So
yeah, because we're going to canonize Michael. That's that's my new crazy theory. So
does this mean it's a supernatural illness that took her and Michael cured her, or is it this is just she had a regular fever and it broke when Michael visited, because lay on hands paladin literally?
Yeah. I'm taking it as Saint Michael visited her at the hospital. This could be one of his 3 miracles. Is that what the requirement was? So
yeah.
But yeah. Which is probably bad, because one of the other requirements is to be martyred, isn't it? So
I thought it was just to be dead. But you know, it could be martyred. I'm not.
So no, you might be right. I might be taking it too far, but yeah. So it probably doesn't hurt, you know.
There's a Catholic listening, they can correct us.
Right.
All right. So
it's been a minute since I've looked at my requirements for becoming a saint, so having not fulfilled a single miracle. So
right. So that puts Justin a little bit happier, and he calls Bob. And for a second, nothing happened. And then blue lights appear out of the stone of the castle wall. And Bob is like face coming out in glowing blue lights. And Mr. flies across the kitchen to be able to like pounce on him, because obviously he's a toy. Of course, Bob is a toy for Mr.
Wait, so right. Bob is in the castle now? He lives...
Yes.
Damn.
He's Bob the Castle, not Bob the Skull.
Really?
Yes. Yes. Yeah, like Toot even calls him Castle Bob at one point, I think, right? So like, yeah, so that was one of the others. So like the Michael thing is like subtle, right? You know, like if you're not paying attention, if you don't know the history, then you're like, okay, well that's neat and cool and whatever. But yeah, the Castle Bob thing was like, oh. And then if you're into home automation and or a giant nerd, you were like, oh, yeah, yes, I would like a giant sentient castle. Thank you very much. Of course, my wizard would live in such a place. Of course, I would try to have my spirit of intellect inhabit it. You know,
where did we leave Bob off in the main story? Wasn't he still technically Butters there?
No, Butters gave him back fully.
Dresden had him through most of Battlegrounds, right? Or at least a chunk of it, where, you know, Bob is the one explaining the reason why the banner is working, and the fog and all of this other stuff it was Mab's workings and stuff. He's the one explaining a lot of that to Dresden. Dresden can feel some of it with the banner and whatnot, but you know, Bob is the one that it's like, you know, this is Mab preparing everybody in Chicago for battle, you know, types of stuff, because it was like doling boons and senses and whatever, so that they'd be more effective soldiers. But
kind of like a berserker bonus on the good people's side, and anyone she thought of was an enemy was going to have a negative effect of fear and wanting to run away, because she was doing that to Bob.
Yes, like, how do you know that, Bob? Because I'm terrified. So she thinks of me as an enemy. Yeah, you're right.
And importantly, Bob was with Harry, working with him to be the circle to bind Enya. So like, he had to be there, probably in part had to be owned by him fully and not just being borrowed for it. I would imagine a spell like that would require a bigger completion of it. But Bob has been summoned. Castle Bob is being summoned because Dresden says, make sure the temperature in the Velasquez quarter stays warm and regulated, because the last thing we want is her to get sick again when she just got back. And he says, will do, and runs away, and Mr. looks about, very disappointed that his toy is gone. And then Will has to pull Dresden away to go over the kitchen budget, because there's 30-something families living in the castle, and they have no idea how to get food yet. Prices are crazy, delivery is spotty. Right. Dresden says he'll be back before the pizza is done, and then they'll go take it up the roof, and then Dresden and Will go away. And there's a little bit of moments between Lacuna and Toot, and then the bad guys come.
Darn the bad guys.
Then who are the bad guys?
Gremlins. They don't get names, but they're gremlins.
One, right?
Well, he just gets called Scar Eye, but that's not like we don't know if that's his name. He's just gonna be called that because it's his most defining feature.
Toot has Dresden's naming powers. He is now Scar Eye.
Toot's like his lord.
Yes. Mr. is also wanting to attack the gremlins because they are more toys and they are invaders. Toot says, we are under attack. The pizza must be defended. Of course the pizza must be defended. And he pulls out a tiny whistle that won't be able to be heard by big uns. So they have to only be summoning the little people because they can still hear it. And apparently, big people cannot hear little people unless the little people are shouting.
Because their ears are dumb.
Yes.
Yeah.
So whenever Toot and Lacuna are talking with any of the big people, to them they're like standing.
Yeah.
Apparently.
That's the implication.
Yeah.
All right. And then Toot summons Castle Bob. And Bob is like, oh, hey, it's what's in it? The one that kept getting bigger. What's your name again? And what's up, kid? But Bob doesn't believe Toot that they're under attack. I'm sure that's a bunch of hooey, he says. Like, you're hooey.
Yeah. So, yeah, Bob's got magical sensors, so he doesn't sense an attack. So we must not be under attack because it's Bob and, you know.
Yes.
And he is perfect.
And he throws in that the defenses on this place are almost as thick as the islands. Nothing can get in here without me knowing it. Are you sure you're not just overly excited? Did you guys get into the Fruit Loops again? That was the once only.
Right.
What happens when little people have sugar? When they, I don't know, they go Fruit Loopy, I assume is the line.
Probably.
Yes. But Dresden cannot be interrupted because he has important budget meetings to go over.
Oh, yeah. I mean, can't forget about the budget meetings.
And Toot says, I did not know what the manner of a monster a budget was or how it might be best dispatched in order to free my lord's attention. But danger is coming. The enemy is nigh. And as Bob is trying to talk to Toot about incoming dangers, Mister is still trying to pounce on Bob's face.
I just gotta say, from these quotes, like, and also when we got the point of view from Mouse, like for Jim, who, from a guy who mostly writes from one point of view, is really good at writing from some of those characters' point of views. Like, it's really, really good.
I definitely feel small while reading this. You know, that was one of the things that was kind of interesting. Was like, I sometimes you have trouble imagining, you know, like different perspectives and that sort of thing. But, you know, at times it's like, okay, I'm definitely flying down the hallway. He's definitely about to perch on a giant suit of armor, at least giant to him. You know, and then when they get the tapestries and stuff like that, you know, like there's definitely like, okay, I am not walking down a giant hallway. I'm like this little tiny creature in a huge freaking space, you know? So, I mean, he's like G.I. Joe size, right? So he's like 12 inches now, but you know,
that's huge,
or possibly even more, but yeah,
they are
still.
So Toot and Lacuna and Scarai are the biggest of them, and I think they're just about a foot tall, and all the rest of them are smaller, with whatever significance that has.
Right. Feels like he should be taller by now. I don't remember when he was like, maybe it was Cold Days, you know, like he was G.I. Joe sized is I think where he gets described and whatever, but yeah. So.
And he tried, what did he try? Did he throw himself in the dryer or what it was? He tried to shrink himself.
Or to hold himself down with weights to compress it. Yeah. Let's see. So the Gremlins, the enemy, they are all the same general cast, but varied from one to another. They're humanoids, colored in leathery greenish skin with flopping ears and oversized hands and feet. The features were exaggerated to various degrees of ridiculousness, but each one of them had the same sharp, vicious teeth and the same sickly, golden, reptilian eyes. They had armor, just like Toot's guys do, and they were the ancient foe of Toot's folks. They're gremlins. And Scarai calls him a pix the whole time. So Scarai says, we have no need to do battle with your ilk, stand aside. And Toot, of course, has very much need to do battle because he's protecting the pizza and Dresden. And he says, you violate the rightfully won lands of my lord Dresden. The words rang with power and we were within his domain. The gremlin flinched and snarled at the mention of my lord's name. So the invocation of Dresden's name by Toot was enough to actually hurt the invading Fey gremlin.
Yeah, at least annoy him. And I mean, at least specifically inside the castle as well, which is pretty interesting. And I wonder how much that is like just a pure play magic thing and how much that is like because they're dealing with the Fae, right? And Dresden is the Winter Knight, you know, so but
all of the above, I assume.
Could be, yeah.
Like, the gremlins are not trying to do magic against Dresden and the castle. They're setting off a bomb. So they're not needing
magical
the rules of
bomb
the
or
Fae.
Actual.
Yeah, it's
we'll get there.
Boom type bomb.
Yeah. Yes, the boom.
Yeah, the boom is going to go boom, and it's going to be bad.
Right.
But so if they had been trying to do magic, I assume that the Homestead laws would mean that they couldn't, because the rules that the Fae, like Cat Sith or Leah or whoever had gone into a residence without an invitation, they can't do anything that would be against the host. So they would have to leave and hurt them elsewhere or figure out a way of an invitation to actually do anything evil that way. Invading gremlins have no invitation, therefore they're relying on mechanical means instead of magic. But the sense of like, you are an invader and that is bad with power behind it on my stomping grounds is enough to at least make him hurt a moment.
It's also interesting to note that if it does involve the Homestead laws, that it was either not hampered or was otherwise improved after the fact that this was the headquarters of the Better Future Society, right? So, you know, there's been mention before about, you know, not being able to do things in a place of business because people are moving in and out and the threshold would be very weak if it even existed at all. So if he does have basically a threshold, that would be pretty wild. And I'm curious if that would be further enhanced by the refugees, for lack of a better term, by those 30 families, considering it their home right now.
Right. Definitely. Because part of this is Dresden's domain is because he's lived at that block for 20 years at that point, off and on.
Yeah.
But during
is this right where he is? I actually forgot that detail that it's built right on his. That's still very petty, by the way.
But, it's just
but rather convenient right about now. Because he built it right above his lab as well, right? So it's all Dresden got was a very slow, very long upgrade that he didn't have to pay for at this point, So
totally winning that.
Did they mention that the hole in the ceiling? Did we get the Doctor Strange?
Just
a skylight.
We'll cover it. So they are touching on it, but I don't think we're getting we don't know that we've got a skylight yet. Let's put it that way. So,
so the domain and the castle and the families in Ghost Story, when the castle was up and the Better Future Society was running in it, and all the Einherjar going in and out and doing their wrestling practice with Murphy, when Dresden, the ghost, went into it, he did feel the fact that it was a threshold. It was a family. They already had families living there to maintain a threshold. They were doing that intentionally. So even though it was a business at that point, they were also kind of playing the system of making sure that there was also a threshold there already.
Yeah, you're right.
And now he's continuing that, and with the same thing. It's his, it's others, and it's their headquarters all at the same. All right. So the gremlin, having been hurt by the word of power, says, then we do need to do battle. Ilk. And Toot says, you're an ilk. And then they start fighting. In the introduction of the boom, it had rectangles and a bunch of wires and a small jug of liquid, and it goes tick, 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 which he knows is a bad thing because he's seen those things on TV before.
Don't tell me watching TV ain't good for nothing.
Right.
The small folk.
Yeah. Okay, so we've got two that come up to help Toot Toot, and they are Blue Nose and Wobble Shanks, and they're armored, and they have to slow down the enemy, and so they go to the tapestry that is covering the hole in the ceiling.
Right. This is your Doctor Strange hole. So
yes.
Yeah.
And as they're flying down the hallway to be able to get to the hole in the ceiling and the canvas that's covering it, there's a mention that all of the big guys don't even notice the little people. Sometimes it's like we have to hit you people with the rock just to get you to realize we're standing there. His frustration is very palpable.
Do you empathize with this as a small person yourself, or
I am not that small. I'm small enough that people don't realize I can't reach the top shelf in the kitchen, but I am average enough that I can still find clothing easily.
Well, that's.
I think your wife is like 6 inches shorter than me.
Yeah.
So, how
she's under 5 feet. So
I'm 5'5", a little bit above that.
Yeah, that's pretty average for a midget.
To go to Google to get this in centimeters, so I understand it. There we go. Okay.
So, what's the verdict there for all the other people listening at home?
Yeah, how many?
It's for 165 centimeters for a Danish woman. I guess that's also about average for a woman here.
It's a very average height. I'm very boring looking. So, but my husband, who's a foot taller than me, doesn't understand why I can't reach something that he puts in the back on the top shelf in the cabinet in the kitchen. It's like, if you want me to remember that we have it, not buy multiples of them, you have to put a place I can see it. And access.
That's fair. That's fair. I feel like that's okay.
I got myself a step stool just so that I could access things in the back.
Did you get one for your wife, Justin?
We have step stools around the house, but they're mostly for the kids. The one that I tease her about is an idea that I had when I was doing drive-through way back in the day, and it was the entire world should probably be built about 2 feet higher for large people, because it can still be accommodating by building footsteps into everything, right? Just like a a ledge or something that short people can stand on, and it'll be perfectly ergonomic for everybody involved. But so I've been teasing her about that lately. Again, it's come back up where it's just like, stop putting things on the bottom shelf, because for me that's like foot level. For you it's like eye level.
There's also a funny problem when I try to put something in the fridge that I want to make sure that he can see it. I put it on the top shelf thinking that that's where he's gonna see it, but he has to bend over to see the top shelf, and so it's actually less helpful. It took me a second to figure that out, versus if I put it on the bottom shelf, he can still see it even though he has to bend over further.
Yep.
Height is an annoying thing. Like Toot can sympathize.
Indeed.
All right, so they get the tapestry. It's not really a tapestry. It is a canvas cover trying to hide the hole in the ceiling that Michael Carpenter hasn't had a chance to do his carpentry skills to fix yet, I assume. Because
it's a tarp. But it's just covered with like a tarp.
I mean, yeah, Michael's not going to be doing the work, probably. He's the foreman, right? Like he's still kind of pretty disabled to be in a harness trying to patch up a roof or something. So, but that'd be my guess anyway.
I like Toot's judgment. The tapestries were of terrible quality, as they were simply blank canvas, and I felt that such artisanry was not the standards of my lord.
Right. Yeah.
He doesn't get the actuality of it. It's just like, it's not pretty enough. He deserves better.
It does beg the question what Toot would feel is better standard, like, because there's quite a spread of like fey art I could imagine him bringing to the table for Dresden, and just be like,
Toot's gonna take like a giant pizza billboard and just be like, this.
It's gonna find somewhere on Amazon. There's gonna be a tarp that's just the pizza pattern, and it's just that is it. That's what he would do. That or Star Wars. All right, so they gather the tarp and they hold it between them, and they're flying, even though it's very heavy, and they do have to work pretty hard to drop it over all of the gremlins as much as they can. And then they start stabbing them through the canvas and dropping the enemy invasion from 3-1 against them to 2-1 at least. And there's this mention that Toot and his people have Svartalf-made fey metal blades, which I wonder how they got before or after anything, and did Dresden have to pay a lot for that? Maybe Molly provided.
Or it was payment for defense of the city or some nonsense. Like, I mean, I'm curious about the finer details as well, but it doesn't seem like insurmountable. Like, again, they're like, I think they hammered nails into swords before, right? Was it something like that they were doing in Cold Days? But maybe Molly did do it.
Had like a letter opener that had been sharpened or something, kind of.
Or and like box cutters at one point.
Yeah. Lacuna had a real blade that someone actually made her, and Toot was very jealous. But then, like in Summer Night, they had been doing things with like Pepto-Bismol bottles, and I think they used box cutters. Yeah. He's been getting upgrades over the years as he's been getting bigger.
Another entry for gear, gadgets, and guns.
Yeah, someday. When we run out of topics so easily. Okay. Scar-Eye has a hatchet, and it is of the Bane, I believe, because it hurts later. But Toot is trying to make Scar-Eye into No Eyes, but it doesn't quite work. There's more fighting, and Blue Nose was there, and he gets hurt.
I like the idea of a gremlin using a tomahawk, type, hatchet as a battle axe. Like, that's what I imagine when he's fighting, because it's like he seems to be using it with two hands most of the time, right? And it's got to be awkward as hell, but that's basically the image I have, is like, this thing has got to be at least as tall as he is, and for him it's a giant two-handed axe. So,
and the description that he's using Bane made weapons as like, it's specifically just to be more vicious. It's like, and now he has to make sure not to touch it in the wrong way either.
Right.
Okay. And in the stramash of it all, Toot realizes, wait, where is Scar-Eye and the Boom? Because he's lost sight of all of the other people getting hurt and stabbing and whatnot. And Blue Nose doesn't know what he's talking about. It's like, the boom is going to boom the castle. And then Blue Nose only gets the fact that, but not the pizza, because the pizza must be protected.
Right.
So Toot summons his Lou Tender. At least he didn't start talking about his colonel.
Oh, his lieutenant. Okay, right.
Yes.
He sets his Lou Tender to deal with the rest of them, and he's going after the leader. Is some fun bits of the little battling of the fact that when Toot gets like smacked down, his wings get stunned and he can't fly up easily. He has to let them recover. But in the meantime, he can just do the like big leaping jumps like in the Hong Kong movies.
Yeah, doesn't he like slam into a door or something?
Yeah.
That it's also like backtracking a little bit. Like, so there's a semi chase scene through the castle because like they do make a point of mentioning that the castle is built like a castle. So the stairs don't run from the basement to the roof or anything like that. They're only single level, right? And you have to go to the other side of the castle to get into the next stairwell. So there is kind of like this running battle through the castle, where they kind of catch him on the upper floor or something like that with the tapestries and everything. And then he has to chase them through one or two additional floors back and forth because, they got to go down the stairs and everything. That was some neat attention to detail since I'm a nerd. So.
Yes, and it was built with defense in mind, and the thing that had stunned Toot was the fact that Scar had closed one of the heavy oak doors right in time for Toot to break his teeth on it. And that's why he was stunned, and he had to move on his stupid legs like slow, stupid biggin. Right. So Toot is trailing after him, trying to catch as much as he can, doing the Hong Kong jumps. And then he says, Mab's frozen boogers. They're going to the kitchens.
Right.
They're going to the pizza ovens because the pizza oven is going to have gas, and then the boom is going to go boom, and then the gas is going to explode the whole castle.
Right.
And it would kill everyone inside because that wouldn't be a little death. It would be the kind of death that the big death, the one where stories were going to be ended with, and he didn't want that because he was kind of getting the idea of death is a bad thing and not just something that isn't even noticed, which the rest of the little people kind of can't grasp it.
Yeah, and then like a page later, if that, he's like, Kringle's frozen balls, like so like now we've got the little folks swears and we know what they do. So
yeah, but they are fun a lot. As he's getting into the kitchen, Scar-Eye makes him stop because he has the Bane hatchet to Lacuna's throat and is holding her in place by her braid. And is trying to say they'll let Lacuna go if Toot ties himself up and then goes away with them to be able to stop him from stopping the booms.
And before Toot has to choose between her and pizza or something, and he chooses her.
Okay, good
it's
try.
Almost like you've read stories and you know some tropes. But there's a moment of hesitation because obviously he doesn't want to do that. He doesn't want to stop fighting. He doesn't want Lacuna to get hurt, and Lacuna's quite pissed off. And he had actually touched the hatchet to her throat, and it's burning her because it's the Bane. She's in quite a lot of pain with it. But in the middle of all that, when they're stalling, Mr. decides that he can't take it anymore and he has to pounce on the gremlins. And
hell yeah, let's go, Mr.
Yes, Mr.
Doesn't Bob actually lead him over there? Like,
yes,
isn't
that's
the
right.
blue light? Yeah, the blue light from Bob earlier shows up and basically does the laser pointer thing right over by the goblins, and then Mr. comes in like a wrecking ball. So, yeah.
Yes, you've got it exactly. All 7 of the little folk standing on the table froze in place, and then the Tomcat tilted his head to one side and then pounced on the nearest gremlin. And Bob the Castle says 60 seconds on the counter. and Mr. takes care of pretty much all of the gremlins. Lacuna chops off her braid to be able to get away from Scar Eye. And
oh no!
Her braid was kind of cool looking.
Yeah.
Toot goes after Scar Eye and drives him into the Bane-made doors of the pizza freezer.
The pizza freezer, not just a freezer. It's the pizza
freezer.
Freezer.
There's this small little detail that Dresden goes into the freezer. He doesn't just pull something out of the freezer. He walks into the freezer to pull out. Yeah. He has a castle-sized freezer of pizza.
Like Justin said, how long are all these amenities going to last with the wizard in residence?
Yeah, that I kind of get the feeling that Marcone had to do some magic proofing because, especially with some of his new things, like maybe it doesn't work quite the same way with the Denarians, but the castle also has magical defenses, so I can't imagine that doesn't count for anything as far as needing to figure out a way to pipe gas into the basement or, not blocking radio waves or, because like I got to imagine even like a regular castle is going to hamper your signal. But, anyway.
It depends if all that stuff was mortal magic or, Nordic, Odin magic, which technically is mortal, I guess.
Well, and that's a fair comment too, because isn't there like a line about it being like a Twilateg castle or something, or however you pronounce that? There you go. So, but yeah, like you might be right. Like it might not have been like a mortal castle. It might have been, like fey magic. So
yeah,
but I think Gwyneth Nuth had done some of the things that was mentioned at least in peace talks. That the some of the defenses, or at least some of the signage on the outer level. But we don't know where the castle came from because he refused to answer that question when we got to ask Jim.
Right.
But it could have been, the freezer could have been built out of Nordic magic, thinking that like Guard could have done something to more permanent that's not going to go away in 3 days. It could be lasting, or it could just be a simple human wizarding spell that he could re-up every couple of days just to make it keep working. There's no real need with as many abilities as he has that it has to be running on electricity, especially when the city is in such disarray that they probably don't have easy, reliable power, which is why.
Yeah, and I mean, Marcone would have had some kind of backup, I'd imagine. But that's a good point. Either way, the freezer's got to be, well, a modern freezer would have to have compressors and fans and stuff like that. But sure, if they're just like giant ice blocks or something, maybe. But the castle's origin, like I want to say somebody challenged Marcone about it, and Marcone snapped back like they were like, oh, you did this, like this was a message or something like that. That's what I'm trying to remember. EG would know if I'm crazy or not. But
I mean, that was part of the thing, the fact that they had Gwyneth Nuth's head when Corman and Enya had stormed into the peace talks. They had his head, and he was one of the people who had done some of the defenses of the castle. So it's just like, fuck you in particular. Yeah, they killed their buddy. But this stainless steel kitchen that's somehow still working with all the wizarding that I would really like to know more of the details about is getting kind of banged up because the hatchets are going into kitchen doors, and hatchets are falling into the concrete floor and sending chips flying, because however hard they are, hitting that thing is enough to chip concrete, which I don't know how brittle it is, but that does seem like a decent amount of force. And Scar Eye tries to be all menacing. If your lord will fall, his house will be laid to waste. It's only a matter of time, one night, one day. And it says, but it's not this night, because he's all valiant and stuff.
Right. And then he says for Frodo and charges. So
yeah. What's a Frodo?
Yeah.
Wait, what?
It's a joke.
Okay, fine. I think.
Oh my god.
Thank you for having to be here to explain that to him, like, of all people.
Right. So Scar Eye staring at his weapon that's stuck in the kitchen door that he can't get out. And Lacuna is coming down, and she's being all menacing, and Toot's facing him being all menacing, and then Mister is coming up and being all menacing, and the gremlin made a fatal mistake, is that he panicked and he ran, and Mister goes after him, and that solves the gremlin problem.
Right. I do like the very slight Mister as a xenomorph thing where it's like, so, Toot's there standing his ground, Lacuna's coming up behind him, and a crumpled body of a gremlin falls off the table where Mister was, and then Mister jumps down or something, or then he panics and runs. Mm-hmm. But yeah, it's just like, yeah, good times.
Yes. Formidable Sir Mister. And then Lacuna is the one who says, but the pizza! At least knowing that it needs to be protected, even if she doesn't like it. And so they buzz over to the boom, and it's going tick, tick, tick. And Bob the Castle says, Dresden will be here in 40 seconds, but there's only 36 left on the timer. And then the pizza timer goes off with a bing, and Lacuna's like, oh, that's it. And she just turns the dial on the bomb timer so that they have more time. And Bob is like, oh, I guess that works. That's surprising.
Right. Yeah. Oh, yeah. I guess they're not like Spetsnaz or anything. It's so hilarious because it's like, obviously it's on an egg timer, basically, right? So it's just like, just turn it more. So, yeah.
And Bob's like, do you know what you're doing? Don't touch that thing. It's going to explode. Oh, there's only 30 seconds. Screw it. And then it works.
Right.
There, Lacuna says, now you have 30 minutes to save the pizza. Good work, Tiny Tish, is what Bob says to her. And I don't think she likes being called Tiny Tish, but she doesn't say anything yet. And then Sir William and Dresden come back. He's like, is that a gremlin? And Bob, what the hell did you do to my cat?
Sir William.
Yeah.
All right. An hour later, they're all on the roof of the castle eating pizza. And the report of how bad is the guard. There are several injuries, one severe, none mortal. We were fortunate. We drove the enemy forth. And next time it'd be nice if they take one alive so they know who sent them, Dresden says, but he'll have to take that up with Mister because Mister's the reason that the gremlins are dead.
Great.
And broaches a subject that's really uncomfortable to him because he doesn't fully understand it, even though it's scary. And he says, I'm sorry that your heart hurts. She was brave. And Dresden cries a little bit and says, thank you. She was. And then they talk about Bob the Castle's defenses that were all calibrated to larger threats. He didn't have them set to see anything as small and sneaky as gremlins. And without the guard and the little people, the place would have burned down and everyone would have been lost. I'm sorry about your refrigerator, though. The refrigerator doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It's not going to last long anyway. At least it's not going to be all smooth stainless steel. It's going to see battle.
Apparently.
Yeah. But Justin says
maybe
it's necessary action.
He's got the extended warranty, so.
Probably traveled with Marcone, though. That'd be a way of Marcone, like, taking away all the documentation of that. You have no idea who to call.
Oh, that petty bastard. He emptied the junk drawer. Where are all the documents?
Where's the batteries? Yeah.
Right.
Right. Dresden says, I never try to second guess the guy on the ground. It says, the battle is done, but what will we do about the economy? Because it's still the big bad guy that's out there. Right. But Dresden says something hopeful. We'll do what we always do. We stick together. And then Lacuna comes sit down next to Toot, and he gives her half the pizza. And she says, you came for me first, not the pizza. Toot says, you are more important than the pizza. And she calls him a fool.
Yeah. And leans into
I kind of called that one.
So, yeah.
Yeah, it's like you can see a trope coming from a mile away.
Right. Look, man, tropes aren't a problem. Appropriate usage of tropes is really good. So
yes. And it is good. Especially, he's really fawning over her, calling her my love and all that.
Yeah. Oh, and see, it was funny too because, like, yeah, in the early parts, it's like my love this, my love that, and it's like you idiot, So perfect married couple already. So, but it is funny just because it's like he's very open about it, right? So there is no like him just running around, with his butterfly wings and everything. She fucking knows what he feels because he says it all the time. So.
If I remember right, I thought she said something back to him like that in the beginning. around the time when he was saying like, she's a great fierce warrior and I have the scars to prove it. Try to find that, because it's not just a one-sided thing. She does admit that she loves him too, or whatever Faye can have, which kind of brings up the question of like, do they have free will to be able to feel love? We've had that argument before.
Well, the little people got less power, so they probably got more free will, among other things. But
okay, I guess she doesn't say something. I thought she did. I can't find it if she does.
Well, I know at the end, basically he like she leans into him, I think, is like one of the big tells of like, actions louder than words. Like she's she's returning the affection. But so
yes, they are like paired up to each other at the very least. I really want to know more about Castle Bob. Does he still have a skull?
Right.
It's like, how much can he do? How much can't he do? Does he ever get to sleep anymore, or is he constantly running?
He can regulate temperature, which makes you wonder if there are variable thermostats in some of the rooms, or if he can otherwise control some of the airflow.
Yeah.
Or maybe they've got heated floors. Yeah, exactly. Like, is he redirecting something, mechanical, or is it, more than that? And it's magic, so for all intents and purposes, it might be more than that. The other thing that I'm curious about is like, what are his anti-siege capabilities, right? Say it was, it was Hobbs or something instead of gremlins, right? They're more man-sized and whatever. What's he going to do? I mean, certainly, I guess he could probably like turn on some bright lights in the Hobbs specific case. But if it's something macroscopic, does he have, blasting rods hidden through the castle? Does he have magical ballistae to shoot at something large and flying at him? Like, so yeah, there's that. And that's why I think it's great, is because it's given us all those ideas and questions. And now he's given himself a canvas that he can play with later, because we know a little bit, like there's either supposed to be another, what was it? Another short story, or was it supposed to show up in, it was in Good People, right? In Good People, where he talked about having the gargoyles. So
yes, because the gargoyles got up and started running around. Yeah.
So is this pre or post that? Even.
I think so. Peace Talk, Battleground, and then Little Things, and then the Good People, because the Good People was Christmas. So it was Christmas Eve and the Good People that happened right next to each other, and this seems to be only a couple of weeks after the destruction. So there's,
But yeah, so it just kind of interesting. I mean, certainly the gargoyles would probably get involved, but is it Bob's capability to control them? Probably not. So they're a layer of defense, but they're not necessarily specifically under Bob's control per se. Like, I'm sure he can show up like with Toot and just be like, oh shit, there's something on the roof, go deal with it or whatever. But he's not necessarily like, taking autonomous control of them or anything.
Right. But, so Bob being able to get into all sorts of statues and whatnot could probably get into a gargoyle, but it'd probably be better to use them like the stone dogs that Ancient Mai builds, right? So that they have like a set of rules and behaviors coded into them to be able to be defensive that way.
What, the gargoyles?
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm kind of getting the impression the gargoyles are more, I mean, first of all, they're probably a callback, right, as much as anything, but they're probably not like automatons of some kind. They're probably like creatures, or something.
That would be fun.
That's a little bit, it's heavier fantasy, right? Like they could be, right? They could be some kind of, artifice, like, the dogs from the council or something. But, like you've got the gargoyles 80s cartoon or 90s cartoon, right? So like, that's one of the first things that I'm thinking. But even in D&D, they're like intelligent monsters and whatever. So that's why I'm like, there's probably more examples of them being actual monsters than some kind of mechanical creature or something. Or golems even. Like they could easily be golems just shaped like a gargoyle, right?
Yeah.
So
what Welsh castle would have had gargoyles on it?
Yeah, I mean, because gargoyles is more a gothic thing, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, like many centuries later.
Yeah,
well, and maybe they
apart.
weren't there. Maybe they weren't there to begin with. Maybe Dresden's a big giant nerd, and he arranged to have gargoyles.
That's very possible. Or maybe like Mab or Leah, just like, you're going to have these now.
We brought you a housewarming gift. Yes. How lucky are you? We brought you bodyguards.
Would Dresden have watched the cartoon, or is he like he's probably a little too old for that?
Could, yes.
No, let's see, because he's in his 40s now. He would have been Jesus.
So he was born in 75, right? So more or less.
Is that when it was?
I think so.
Okay.
Or maybe as young
as 78. Gargoyles was 94 to 96. So yeah, he would have been in his 20s, right? Which doesn't preclude it as a big giant nerd myself, but
yeah, it means cartoons on Saturday morning with his Coke and Cheerios.
Right. No, there's definitely a different, perspective of like he's in his 20s drinking Coke and Cheerios before Murphy yells at him about something versus, he's sneaking it while Dumorn is off doing his wizardy.
I was actually just more thinking that, the more magical training and the power grew in his 20s, he might not have been able to just regularly catch it on TV because he would blow up the TV pretty fast.
Sure. True too.
Like he was watching Knight Rider as a teenager at the store window, but I think that was already verging on him starting to become too magical active to maybe do that much longer.
Right. Well, right. At the end of Death Mask, when the Ebenezer had brought down the satellite on Campo Verde or whatever, he went to a diner to see the TV there to ask them to turn up the news.
That would be cool. He goes to a diner to watch Saturday morning cartoons.
Yeah, cartoons.
Yeah, that's funny. There were also comics, so he.
Gargoyles had a comic.
Yeah, there's so many tie-ins. Like part of what I think helps the Gargoyles have staying power is you had so many of the cast of the Next Generation and stuff like that, and granted he's more of a Star Wars nerd, but he's still a nerd, right? So it's just I have a tough time not thinking he would have caught this somehow, but maybe it's wish fulfillment. Maybe we just ask Jim next time we talk to him.
So what cartoons did Harry watch growing up and as an adult?
We could go more broad with that, but I mean, honestly, that's 5 questions though, right? Are the gargoyles autonomous, or are they creatures, or are they constructs of some kind? Whatever the answer is, did Dresden watch Saturday morning cartoons? Did he have a hand in this?
So here's another option. Molly watched Saturday morning cartoons of gargoyles, and Molly decided he needed gargoyles.
Right.
And she's my age, right?
Yeah, she's late 20s.
It's definitely a much more Molly thing, because as soon as I said it, I was like, Mab gave him bodyguards, no chance. She's like, live or die, that's that's your thing. Your present is the will to live. If you can't fight these guys in your casts and whatever, then maybe I chose the wrong night, because that's something Mab would say. But Molly commissioning the Svartalfs for it. Yeah, I could see that happening.
Oh, then of course she's recruiting the gargoyles and good people, so that's maybe her angle into it.
Right. Yeah.
I can't help but feel EG angrily typing on Discord right now about not asking these questions. This is a waste.
Well, he likes to dismiss almost every question if it's not about Mother Winter.
Now, how can we talk about the Fae? That's EG's general warfare.
Yeah. just saw the comments. We did have somebody asking about news about upcoming books. This one kind of snuck up on me in the sense that it's like I knew it was coming, but I didn't know a release date until it was pretty much like the week before, right? Yeah. And then we know about the Law is upcoming on the 5th,
July 5th.
Right? So, but other than that, we haven't heard about like a primary book. We were looking at, I guess it's like Podium Audio they're the ones releasing it or whatever, even though they're releasing it through Audible. And their site, just a little detail, was like they listed it as book 17.5. So you can do with that information what you will. But yeah, we don't know about book 18/12 months is what the working title was.
Yeah. Even last we knew, he was working on the second book of the Aeronauts Windlass anyway.
Right.
And that one called The Olympian Affair, and we haven't heard if that one is finished or releasing or anything. And then he's supposed to pivot back towards Dresden, so we don't know the timeline on those. Although we keep getting these short stories, which I'm grateful for, but it's surprising.
Right. Yeah, Dresden is Dresden, and he likes to complain about how difficult the short stories are to write and get published and everything. And now he's got to do a whole new anthology, right? But
yeah, we're just going to call that one.
Yeah.
I mean, I know E.G. poo-poos on this opinion, but I'm actually really excited about the next Cinder Spires book. I really enjoyed the first one.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, no, I loved what he did with the world, and they're huge, chunky books. So, I'll be very happy to get the next installment for that. So,
So again, The Law comes out on July 5th from Podium Audio. That's coming out on Audible. Jim is reading the story itself, and that seems to be just under 2.5 hours, I think, of the recording. And for reference, Little Things took about 45 minutes. So multiply that a couple of times to get a feeling of how long it is by words. And we'll see what it is, certainly.
Right.
I guess the longest short story we've had from him is the long Bigfoot one. Is that the longest?
Well,
one?
I mean, if you count all three pieces as one, I guess, but
just the most lengthy part, the college part, is what, 4 hours?
No, is it?
I'm just guess.
Is it? Wow.
I'm guesstimating. Let's see.
I mean, I knew he kind of put the 3 out as a book, but so well, because there's a couple in side jobs that are like novella length, right? So like I thought Backup was novella length.
Well, all three stories is 4 hours together.
So, but then Aftermath was a novella. It was longer. That was the thing of side jobs. And then Zoo Day was noticeably long as well because there's three different point of views. That one's pretty long too. Yeah.
Yeah.
I don't know if it had the cutoff
of short story to novella either. Though I don't know exactly how long it is in audio format. On the island thing there with her doing her first job as the Winter Lady.
Oh yeah, that was pretty beefy. Yep.
Oh. I think that's all of our news, all of our discussion of little things so far, at least. Although, again, I really want to hear more about Castle Bob.
For sure. Yeah.
And I wonder if you'll have Bonnie doing anything as well as backup so she can learn anything, whatever. Maybe she's not allowed around people yet.
I mean, she basically gets like a throwaway scene in Peace Talks, right? And then, we haven't really heard anything one way or the other. So, I mean, I get the idea of trying to keep her away from Bob and all of that. But so maybe she's not at the castle, but if she's not, where is she?
Well, she's going to be wherever Maggie is. And if Maggie's not at the castle, that's significant. But I feel like she would be.
Right. Yeah, there are a lot of extra characters that aren't here, probably just because, short story and everything. But it's like, we're in 12 months, right? We're theoretically in the time frame where these might start to overlap a little bit. Is there a throwaway line of like, what's Lara doing? What's Maggie and Mouse doing? Yeah, where the hell's Mouse this entire time? Because damn well he would have smelled the goblins coming from a mile away, right?
So Maggie and Mouse and Bonnie are all going to be together. So wherever Maggie is, maybe she was with the Carpenter family because there is still a hole in the ceiling and maybe she should be in a place that doesn't have a hole in a ceiling, but I don't know where you might weigh that. I don't know.
Yeah. Maybe for all we know, she was on a field trip or a play date or something, right? We don't even know.
Maybe she went to their boarding school away already.
Right. True. Yeah.
We'll have to see. We have questions and we need more content, even though now we've gotten some. Now we need more. The fix doesn't last for long.
It never ends, Jim. Feed us. Give more.
Feed me, Seymour.
That's it for today, I suppose.
Suppose it is.